Y is recorded in front of a live studio audience.
Is that a Faygo?
They have it at Dollar Tree. Yes, it is.
Oh, Faygo orange. That's not your
Yes.
favorite though, right? Aren't you a
I've
grape
only
guy?
tried the grape, yes.
I can't believe you haven't tried the rock and rye.
What is it? Rock and
Oh,
rye?
Zach is drinking the rock and rye right now.
Oh, I thought it was one of
Here,
those
let me show
alcoholic
it.
beverages in a can.
No, it's right here. This is the most classic Faygo
Okay.
flavor of all. It's
Mm.
a red cream soda, basically.
All right, I could get down with
It's
that.
outstanding. I like Red Pop. I do not
Mm.
like Faygo Red Pops though.
Interesting. Yeah, I've only had the grape, and then I saw this at like I said at the Dollar Tree.
Amazing.
They have this flavor, and then they had cola flavor.
Oh yeah, the cola is terrible.
Okay, that's what I assumed. I
Yeah,
don't know
in
why I
fact,
assumed that.
Rachel ordered groceries a few months back and asked for Coke, and they delivered Faygo Cola.
That is the most Detroit thing that could ever happen to anybody.
This is Why, with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling.
I may have something fascinating for us to discuss that just came across the.
Oh, yes,
My
please.
friend Tom just texted. Drunk woman steals 45-foot ferry while shouting, "I'm Jack Sparrow." Allison Whalen drank Lambrini and ate poisonous nightshade before boarding the ferry and drifting up a river on the tide.
Which country was this in?
I'm
Florida.
getting there.
Oh, sorry.
No, let's see. It was a 100-seat ferry, and she smashed it into boats, yelling, "I'm Jack Sparrow, I'm a pirate." She was 51. She boarded the 45-foot Dart Princess with a friend after a 2-day bender where she got drunk on Lambrini and ate poisonous nightshade, which causes hallucinations. She undid the mooring ropes in the early hours, drifted up a river on the tide, bashing into other boats like a pinball machine. Whalen taunted police, shouting, "What are you going to do now? And I believe this is out of your jurisdiction." 30 police, a lifeboat crew, Coast Guards, and paramedics had to be called. And when the cops finally arrested her after an hour, when the ferry came to rest in calm water, she told them, "We'd have ended up in Saint-Tropez if we hadn't been caught." Which is amazing because I don't think Saint-Tropez was big for pirates, was it? Oh, Whalen of Paynton, Devon, stole the double-decker ferry in nearby Dartmouth a year ago. She had called an ambulance claiming to have had a seizure. Medics found her drunk and rambling, and one of them was pushed over by her friend Tristram Locke. The medics called police, went to their vehicle to wait, then looked in the mirror, saw the ferry drifting away from shore. Whalen told police she untied 2 or 3 of the mooring ropes because she kept tripping over them.
Well, fair.
The ferry suffered 1,500 pounds of damage when it hit 2 other boats, which were also damaged. Torquay magistrates heard Whalen and Locke could have been killed on rocks if the tide on the River Dart had been going out at the time. She was fined 100 pounds last year for assaulting an ambulance technician.
So she lived.
She did.
Now, this is an amazing story, and I think we need to share this with people to make sure they understand why I guess maybe why you shouldn't do this, but you should.
But you kind of should.
So, while you were reading this, I did a little Google.
Of course you did.
This happened in 2012.
It says
But
it
this
was.
is coming up. This is coming up on her. Oh, yeah, no. 21st of September 2012.
Yes.
But I think it's the 10th anniversary
So
of.
we should just, yes.
No, we need to make sure people are aware of this. And if you choose to get incredibly inebriated, consume some sort of fatal cocktail of
Right. But where does one get
flowers and booze.
poisonous nightshade?
I
Other
don't know.
than
If you read like Agatha Christie,
Hogwarts.
all over the
Right.
place. Yeah, it's. No, in the 20s and 30s in England, it was just lousy with nightshade.
Of course. And
You couldn't
cyanide, sparkling
Walk down to.
cyanide.
Yeah, you couldn't go down to the shop for kippers and a pint without accidentally getting some nightshade on you.
Well,
Which is why I think those stories still work so well for all of us in this time.
absolutely.
Where you all just wish for a simpler day when we would just just have nightshade everywhere.
Nightshade and absinthe.
Right.
What you want.
And cyanide, like you said.
Yes.
But then people were always getting hit over the head with like Egyptian relics and stuff.
I know, but if you're going to get hit over the head with a relic, like, shouldn't it be?
Oh, your mother would die incredibly happy if she was.
She would. Well, she'd probably be the one wielding it.
No, I could imagine, you know, not that I'm wishing this upon her. Yeah, if she's listening, please, furthest thing from my mind. But as the, you know, as she's slowly losing consciousness, as they're wiping off the statue of Ramses II, just saying, thank you.
Yes, exactly.
I just finished the book, really enjoyed it.
Oh, good. I'm happy. Thank you.
It's interesting because for a biography, it's always the people on stage that you read about and sort of their not travails. I don't even that's the right word, but it's so interesting to see. I think too the overarching theme for a lot of these books is how music saved their life or helped them,
Right.
And I saw that going throughout your book as well. Just what the music did as far as bringing people together and affected everyone around you. Like that seems very much like a theme going through it.
Absolutely. Yes, most definitely.
So it was very enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the whole thing was, you know, it was never ever meant to be any sort of telltale book and all that sort of thing. You know what I mean? Because you know, that just was never me. It was never my point. You know, my point is to try and actually really educate people a little bit about what it's really like to be living and working in that industry. You know, and it's, you know, it's not an ongoing party. It's not, you know, just kick back and hang out and have fun. I mean, you know, you have your moments, you know, but like with any trade, you know, any job, you know, you've got to work hard, you know, and we work harder than most.
I was going to say that also really comes through when you're talking about some of I feel like to my mind, it seemed when you started working with The Who for the show at, I believe it was Wembley, and then the show at Windsor Castle, the sort of pressure of, we don't have the option to screw this up or to have it not work. Like it's got to go.
Yeah. I mean, that's every day. That's every day. You don't have that option. You know, it's not something that's negotiable. You can't go up to, you know, you really can't go up to a promoter or the band and say, you know what, we just can't do this today. It'll be like, right. What are you, insane? So what's wrong with this person? Get her out of here. She's gone mad. You know, I mean, there's insurance involved. There's all sorts of things involved, you know, that it's a lot of money, you know, and it just became more and more and more money, you know, as people came into the industry and figured out exactly how much money could be made out of it. All of a sudden, you know, we were workhorses, you know, definite, absolute workhorses, you know, because the more shows they could get in, then the more money they were making.
Right. What was the stress level like? Because it comes through in bits and pieces, but it doesn't seem like it was an overarching thing.
It's an incredibly, if you think about it, it's an incredibly stressful thing. So what you do is you push that away and you do it. It's like almost automatic pilot, and you synchronize with everyone, and it's this huge, well-oiled machine. But if one of the cogs break on it, it affects the whole thing. You know, and that's when the stress, you can't hide it any longer. You know, that's what it is. I mean, it's like the musicians themselves, you know, they walk up on stage and play a set for a couple of hours. The audience doesn't think, oh, wow, they look really stressed out. They've got a lot riding on the show. And they do, you know, and they are, you know, a lot of them throw up before they go on stage, you know, others take drugs because it's too stressful. And, you know, there's all sorts of different ways of dealing with it. But it's highly stressful, you know, and you know, like you say, you know, that old ditty, "The show must go on," is just so flippant. It's ridiculous, you know. It's like, if only you knew what it took for the show to go on, you know.
Right.
It's you know, but you don't want to depress people either.
You want to sell a few books, yeah.
You don't want them coming to a show thinking that we're all enslaved and they go, we're going to be put in chains and put back on the bus. Although it feels that way sometimes.
Yeah, you don't buy tickets to see AC/DC cry and tell you
Right.
it's hard.
or their road crew.
Yeah.
Out of the front of house sound and loading desk.
What was it like seeing them rise up from where they started and when you first interacted with them?
Have we started? Have we actually started?
Yeah, might as well have.
Oh, okay. Okay, I wasn't sure.
I was like, oh, this is going well. Let's keep talking. Let's keep going.
Oh.
Because I always have that feeling when you hit record, like, everyone suddenly gets very tense. I get tense. And that's like, well, that takes all the fun out of it.
This is way lower stress level. Trust me, this isn't.
That's true. Okay, fair. But with AC/DC, when you first saw them in the club, like, did you get the feeling these guys have got something that other bands at this level don't have?
Well, I didn't first see them in a club. I first saw them in the house, you know what I mean? And they weren't even a full band at that time, but when I first saw them play live, it was like, whoa, wait, what just happened? There's something, I mean, you could tell it because being in the house and living with them and doing the rehearsal, we rehearsed in the house, they auditioned in the house. So the vibe was already there. There was already a feeling of, I don't know what this is, but whatever it is, it's unstoppable. I mean, that was from day one. There was something going on here, and whatever it was just going to keep going, and it was going to keep growing. Did I know that they'd be, however, how many albums have they sold? Like 500 million or some damn thing. I mean, did I know that?
Yeah.
But, I mean, did I know that back then? No, because no one had sold that many albums. You know what I mean? It was a whole different world, but were they, it was just a feeling that whatever it was going to be something. Absolutely,
Yeah. And then you made the move from Australia to London. And that was something you felt like you had to do. Was that sort of just saw the writing on the wall, or?
What I was a bit nervous about was when I stopped doing sound with AC/DC, like when I left AC/DC, because I needed to learn more. It had been a really fast ride up until that point. And I'd learned everything by the seat of my pants, because there was no days off. We didn't have days off. How was I supposed to learn anything? There was no other sound person to teach me. I was doing it. You know what I mean? So I thought, it came to a point where if I'm going to do this and make this a career, not that I even knew what a career was,
right.
but if I'm going to keep doing this, and I wanted to keep doing this, I need to learn more. So that's when I started with Paul Dainty, the Australian promoter, who had his own production company, Sound and Lighting Rig. And that was purely to learn. And that's why I then moved to England, was because I did like several back-to-back in a very short amount of time, international tours. So then I had a taste for it. It's like, I need to know what's happening in the rest of the world. So that was my idea. And I had a fear that if I stayed in Australia, I might never get to leave. I thought, I could be doing the same touring circuit, and it's a small circuit, I mean, the Australian band circuit was big at the time, but the international one was just 7 stops, you know what I mean? So you could do a tour in, a couple of weeks, you were done, sometimes a month, like the Neil Diamond one went over a month because there were so many shows. But I had just a feeling that there was a whole world out there, and I really wanted to know, what was going on, and was there other people out there like me wanting to do this, So that was my idea, having met all these people from America and England from doing these tours. It was like, and my best buddy, he just joined Status Quo, and they'd hired him and he'd moved to England. And so I followed suit, it's like, I mean, I had a one-way ticket. I think maybe a couple of $100 in my pocket, if that much. And off I went. Nowhere to live, nothing, no planning here.
And you were under 21 too.
I was 17. My dad had to sign my passport. Not very rock and roll, but hey.
Well, but do you think if you were older, you would have known better? maybe that's not the right phrase, but you would have been like, oh, this is not a great idea to do this.
If I was older, I probably would have, if I was older, I might have felt I had something to lose, but I had nothing. Where I came from, my upbringing and my childhood, I had nothing to lose,
Yeah.
So it was like an adventure. It was all new. And how bad could it be? How bad could it be compared to, what I'd already been through? It was
Right.
like, and I saw it as like a fresh start, So I embraced it, I had no idea what I was doing, but whatever it was, I was embracing it, and I ended up in Amsterdam first, of course, because, I think we were supposed to have a return ticket if you went to England or something. There was some weird rule of reason why we didn't fly straight into England. So we went into Amsterdam because you didn't need anything. You could just turn up in Amsterdam, So,
right.
turning up in a country where I didn't speak the language, didn't have any money, didn't know what I was doing.
Other than that, you were ready to go.
But it was wonderful. Yeah, it was fabulous. It was exciting,
Just looking down the list of acts that you have worked with and over the years, do you think you have to like the band as to do your job well?
No, not at all. I don't. Me personally, no. To me, and the list is only part of the bands. You know what I mean? I had to sort of pick and choose who I could put in the book and what would fit and all that sort of stuff. But
right.
There's many other examples. like Count Basie and Lena Horne. But bands like those eras and all those sort of things that I found really incredibly interesting. To me, it was always a learning curve about something to do with music, but it was also, obviously a love of music, but I didn't limit myself by only wanting to work for bands that I liked. What I was more interested in was working with people that I knew and trusted and knew I could learn from. That to me was just as important as who was standing on the stage. And an example of that is, I went on to have a really long relationship with an English band called Status Quo. They've sold something like 50 million albums, and they're big everywhere, including South America, Mexico and stuff, except for the States. The States has never heard of them, But I would stay with them over other artists because they were just such a good bunch of people, and the music was simple, but you're standing on the side of the stage and you're looking out into the audience and there's 60,000 people just grinning from ear to ear and loving it. How can they be wrong? You know what I mean? Right. And so you find yourself actually really enjoying the music. Once you know the story behind it and everything, you become a part of it, So it's kind of really hard. I always hate the question, when people go, well, what was your favorite band to work with? It's because they're thinking music-wise, whereas I always think what happened when I was there. You know what I mean? Right. That's how I look at it. And so people always go, who? Really? Why did she say that person of all the people she's worked with? You know what I mean? So, but I don't, if someone wanted to know, it would just be as complicated if someone said, what's your favorite song?
Yeah.
I can't answer that. I have 100 different songs from 100 different experiences that I think are fabulous. And so it's really difficult for me to do that. I can't put things in little boxes. It's very difficult for me to do that.
Well, and as you talk about in the book, your relationship with the crew in the band, like the band's only a part of that. And someone has to go tell Iggy, hey, this is not going to go right tonight or whatever. But then there's a whole other bunch of people that you're trying to whip into shape and get things moving.
Yeah. You've got your entire crew. You've got the house people. You've got, the local authorities. It doesn't end. It's just one thing after another. Whether it's a fire marshal who's had a bad day, arrived late and wants you to move everything 3 feet to the left. It's like, I can't do that now. Where were you at 6 o'clock this morning? You know what I mean? It's like, but that doesn't count. So you have to move everything 3 foot to the left, as they're waiting to start the show. It's ridiculous.
Well, off of that, it seems like it's a minor miracle that a show goes off any night at all.
And more so back then.
Right.
Because there are all sorts of other elements at play, distractions and all sorts of stuff. It was like, oh God, what do you mean they didn't catch the plane? Oh no.
Right.
It's 3 a.m. What do you mean you don't know where they are?
Well, and when you're talking about the lighting, when one of the lighting people falls out of the rigging straight onto his back, and it's not a question of, we don't have time to figure out if he's okay. I see other people are tending to him.
Yeah.
I got to make sure that what he was working on gets done.
Right.
And I can look down and see him, but this is the important part right now.
Yeah, and it's not even, it's not even that, I did stop and go to him and see, because I heard him land. I didn't see it because I was facing this way, but I actually heard and felt him land. It was like a whoosh and a thump. And it was like, what the fuck was that? Right. And there he was. And it was like, Jesus, So, and funnily enough, for me, blood and guts doesn't upset me as much as if someone throws up. If someone throws up, I'm gone. It's like, oh God, get me out of here. No,
different thresholds, yeah.
But if there's blood and guts and stuff, I get really calm and really focused. And it's like, okay, this is what we need to do. Don't move him, don't touch him. Let's check that he's breathing. Okay, this. And then, once everyone's organized and that's all figured out, then I take off to the roof. You know what I mean? That's then you go and you can see him down there and you can make sure that he's still there and people are looking after him, But, and that's kind of my train of thought, I think, anyway, with most things. It's like, okay, what just happened? Give me a second and I'll process it really quickly. Dun, 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 and then everything sort of falls into a little place. And it's like, okay, this is what we need to do. Let's go. And that's kind of just my thought process anyway across the board, So, I don't get hysterical. I don't, like cry and jump around, yell and scream and all that sort of stuff, I mean, if I'm yelling and screaming, it's too late.
All downhill.
Yeah.
Well,
absolutely.
One of the things that comes through so crystal clear from the book that Luke and I were talking about the other day is that your insight and maturity, and you may argue with us on this, but that you had from such a young age, the way you handled relationships you had with, I'm not going to spoil anything from the book, but with individuals you came across at an early age, rock stars you came across at an early age, and the maturity at which you approach those and the consequences and understanding early on what those consequences would be, as well as later in life, and how you address certain circumstances working with others. Like, you've just had this wisdom from the get. And is that something you had intrinsically from birth? Is that something, I know I look at some of the situations in my own parental relationships that have formulated me to have a maturity I didn't necessarily anticipate at a young age, or is it just something that was in you from the start, or just being on the road being like, this is what we got to do?
No, I think my early childhood trained me for being on the road. I think it was that way around, and, I don't feel that I really had a childhood that much, because I had to do things from the get-go. As long back as I can remember, it was, this is what you do. This is, and a lot of it was really unenjoyable and unpleasant, Right. So I think being able to, and having to smile while I did it and stuff, and act as though there was nothing wrong. So I think that little shield helped me interacting with people, because I could be really nervous and stuff, and I'd pretend I wasn't, because I'd put on that face and that front. It's like, oh, hang on, I can use this one. You know what I mean? So, but also, I mean, I had, and I still do, if someone's just really basic with me and straight up and straightforward, because that's the sort of person I am and that I became, then there are no barriers. You know what I mean? I don't care who they are. They can be, the Queen of England, for God's sake. I don't care, because if they're treating me as a one-to-one, then I can go with that. I can run with that. And I think that's how I always treated artists. I didn't treat them as rock stars or, that sort of thing, because, again, I was nervous being a girl. I didn't want them to misread my actions or reactions. You know what I mean? I didn't want to be all moony over them and fussing over them and that sort of stuff, because, you know, there were other girls around that were doing that, and that was why they were there. You know what I mean? That was not my job, you know? So, you know, I mean, meet them in a bar somewhere or in the hotel bar, have a couple of shots, drinks, a laugh and a joke, perfect, you know? Right. But you know, I would deliberately stay away from dressing rooms and things like that, because I would feel that, you know, and not necessarily the band I was working for, it could be their guests or something, you know, misconstrue why I'm there, you know? So plus I was too damn busy working.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, you were so busy. That's another thing. The book is fantastic. First of all, I devoured it and stayed up all night to read it. So it was phenomenal. And it's so great because it paints such a picture of what it's like on the road, and such a picture of how much work and how many skills and talents and trades and negotiating skills and marketing skills and everything that was involved, and that you learned and developed, like who you are it gave such an inside look that I think people don't comprehend of what your jobs involve, and how much, and it's a terrible phrase, but I always go back to like part of the crew, part of the ship. Like, these bands can't exist without you. They can't be who they are, not just because of the lighting or the staging or what have you, but psychologically. Like, you were a counselor, you were a friend, you were a get your ass on the stage person. Like, you have to do so much.
Yeah, they do rely on us heavily. You know, we rely on each other. You know, I mean, we rely on them for us to be able to do our job, and they rely on us for them to be able to do their job. So, you know, it's a close intermingled thing, you know, and it's, and you know, some good, strong relationships build from it, some totally dysfunctional ones build from it. You know, it just depends on who the people are and where they're at that stage of their life, you know. But I'm glad you say that, because that was the goal of the book, was to let people see what it's really like, you know, to do this job, you know, and yes, there's fabulous times, and yes, there's like outrageously extravagant things that happen, but there's also incredibly hard work and incredibly talented people involved, you know, and they give up a lot. You know, we give up a lot for that life, you know. It's because it becomes all consuming, you know, relationships, you know, marriages, family, you know, God forbid you've got a pet,
right?
You know? But, you know, and now, you know, not so much now, because, you know, they've totally changed the touring schedules now. They're much more reasonable. There's much more downtime. I mean, they're, you know, depending what level of the industry you're in. I mean, the productions, some are just outrageously huge, but they'll have 2 complete crews, or sometimes 3, you know, and they'll leapfrog each other, you know. So it doesn't mean that they're stopping anywhere. They're continually going. They're just there a day before you, and then they leave a day after you, you know. So, you know, it just depends, you know, what size production that you're on, you know. But I think it'd be nice if the general public actually knew, you know, what it took to do a show. You know, they're starting to educate themselves, you know, and they figured out the sound desk and the lighting desk and, you know, and different things. And, you know, so some of them have become quite the critiques, which isn't always
right.
received well, because you can say, you know, you could have been up for 3 days, and it's like, oh, well, you know, there's a little drape over there that it's like, I will kill you if you speak one more word.
Right. Don't.
But, you know, just, you know, I mean, obviously, you know, that's our goal, is to make it perfect each time, you know, for each experience that's had by the audience, you know, and the band.
And to build off of what Heidi was saying, the sort of way there, you do have to sort of be very forthright, or that you are very forthright and just cut and dried, and here's what we need to do. How do you feel about this moniker of the first female roadie? Because the book is very much a little bit saying, like, that didn't matter. I needed to prove that didn't matter. But it seems like a lot of things are saying, well, here's what she did.
Well, you know, I only got that title in the last decade or so. Before that, I never really thought about it. I mean, I knew I was the only one out there, but I thought, well, there must be someone else somewhere doing something, you know.
Right.
And you know, just because I wasn't coming across them, but, you know, a lot of different people have done research into it and that sort of thing, and they seem to keep coming back to me. So, you know, It's matter of fact with me because I was too busy just doing the job. I was too busy trying to keep the job, because I knew I was the only girl, at least in my little era of the industry, my part of the industry. I was definitely the only girl. And at the time, I just wanted to keep my grip. So I would finish one tour and start another one the next day. I'd finish one, get on a plane, and boom, straight into another. Or I'd be straight into production or straight into rehearsals or back at the warehouse prepping a rig, And that was because I thought if I stopped, maybe they'd hire a guy instead, Yeah, I mean, it was a true concern, because, I mean, my biggest fear was because, I was the only female, I had a single room. Well, that's a financial commitment. We could have got two people in that room if she was a boy, So, I mean, at least they didn't try to shove a boy in the room with me, which was quite good, but which I was thankful of. But, I think little things like that back then made a huge difference. And today they even make a big difference there's so many bean counters involved in a tour that, anywhere they can save a penny, they will, as they run out and spend $300,000 on a plastic inflatable that's used once. So, but it's that's how business is. That's how corporations are. And to me, the industry's become a corporation. It's this huge corporate thing now. I mean, we used to joke about corporate events, but now every event's a corporate event,
Yeah. Well, I think too, as a woman, I think that is something also that comes across, not about the corporate event, but as you were saying in response to Luke, that one of the things that's really cool about how you tell the stories in the book is you do remind us that you are a woman and you were changing the game and the rules were different and you had to be very conscientious. You had to behave certain ways so you didn't fall into these pits. But I think as women, quite often, unfortunately, because we have to, because we're often not able to tell our stories fully, but so often women, the whole focus of their story becomes how they were a woman. And the main crux of your story is how you were in this job, you did these things, you changed the world, you were part of you were on the precipice of some of the greatest bands of all time and how they came to the forefront. But you weave in the fact that you're a woman throughout, so people don't forget, but it's something that men aren't going to read the book and be like, oh, here she is, another woman telling about how she's a girl, and everyone can understand and feel that. And I think it was just a beautiful juxtaposition of that. And the other thing that is fantastic, I want to talk about all these stories that are in the book, but one of the things that I found when reading it, the way you tell things so matter of fact, all of a sudden there's this amazing story that comes out of nowhere. And you're like, wait, we were just talking about how the rigging was going up and wait, you just met who? And now you're on the what? So it's fantastic. And and then you're at Windsor Castle, and the Windsor Castle story is my favorite. And I won't spoil it for readers because the way it unfolds is what makes it so fabulous, but it's phenomenal.
I think, I mentor people as part of what I do now, and I say to young females in the industry, it's really important that you fit in as a member of a crew, not stand out as being a woman, because that's not why you're here. You're not here to be a woman. You're here to fill a position and be a member of this group that becomes a crew. And it's a very tight-knit group because we have to be able to depend on each other because there's no one else to depend on, So, I make that point and I make it over and over again. And I think it's incredibly important. And I think it saved me, and kept me going in the industry. The fact that I would downplay, it's like, I mean, never wearing a dress or makeup on a day off or, anything like that, and I mean, the women in the industry now laugh when they hear me say that because they do, but there's more of them, there's more of them and they can go out together and, or they're with their other half, their significant other or whatever. And so it's a different environment now. So, I'm happy for them. I think it's great. Although it means you've got to pack more shit. So I don't know. I think my biggest splurge touring was a pair of Fiorucci pants, of red Fiorucci pants, And that drove everyone crazy. They're like, oh my God, you look fabulous in those. It's like, oh, best not wear these too often.
Oops. Did you replace your leather jacket? Did Iggy replace your leather jacket?
No, Iggy's not, but I haven't seen him recently. I haven't seen him since the book's come out. So he's still got time. Although the funny thing is, I just actually got 2 leather jackets this past weekend. So I think I'm set for leather jackets. I'm gonna have to tease him about something else.
Yeah. You'll have to find something else.
I think I'm pretty hooked up for leather jackets right at the moment.
Yeah. All right. You're good.
Yeah.
But still, James, come on.
I mean,
a little something. Yeah.
Give it up, babe. Give it up.
Yes.
At least a t-shirt, damn it.
Right? Come on. I'm from Detroit, so I feel I'm very connected that, Iggy needs to make right for you as my whatever capacity I'd like it to be.
Iggy's in Florida going, I wish she'd shut up.
It's always nice to be appreciated.
Absolutely.
Do you miss it? Do you miss that life?
It's an incredibly hard life to give up, and you have to consciously prepare yourself for it, because there's something that is another thing that's really not known in the world as well, is that this is an industry with the highest suicide rate, just to put a damper on things. And a lot of it is when people become unemployed in the industry because they've had an injury or something and they can't continue to work that way, or they've aged out, and they can't physically really do it anymore. So, and I think the problem with that is, I've had a lot of discussions with different organizations and different groups about this. And it's because you get to a point, if you're in the industry long enough, where you really can't have a conversation with someone who's not in the industry. And it's not because you're an elitist or anything like that, you're better than anyone else. It's just that you're so used to total strangers coming up to you and wanting something from you. They make friends with you because they want passes to a show, or they want t-shirts, or they want to meet the band, or, and it gets, just too much at times, and it's like, you think someone's like, really nice, you meet them, you think they're nice and they're friends, and then you realize that they just want to hang out, and it's like, so a lot of people lose that sort of faith in humanity, I guess you'd call it. And then when they're no longer in this touring environment, they feel desolately alone, because it's hard. I mean, I had to train myself. I started walking a lot of places purely so I'd bump into people, not physically, but you know what I mean? I'd come across total strangers. And people was, you'd walk past and someone would sort of smile and say hello. And my first reaction was, what do they want? Literally, without realizing it, and then I realized I was doing that. And it was like, oh, I know what this is, so I had to train myself out of it, and it's like, I'd sort of smile at someone and nod. It took me ages to actually say hello, it's not that friendly. And I don't like people that much, to be honest. So it was really difficult. But getting back to the point is that people miss it incredibly when they leave. It's like their entire life has ground to a halt, and a lot of them have lost their partners and their children and their marriages because of the lifestyle and because it's so demanding and you're gone so much. So a lot of them end up really alone. And I mean, I actually like my own company, so I don't mind being alone. COVID's actually been okay for me. I mean, I've been promoting the book and stuff, so I've been kept really busy. But still, I've been fortunate enough not to get ill, and the staying in really hasn't bothered me that much, So I think it depends on the individual, but I'm a realistic person, at my age, am I going to go out and do a 12-month tour? If I was, it would have to be a very select position, and probably one I haven't held before, just because then I'd be learning something, so it'll be interesting on that level as well, but, I've got pretty much this next year's, hopefully, pretty much going to be looking after itself. I don't know, this might be a good time to say this to you guys, but my book's just been optioned for a documentary. So
wonderful.
That's, yeah. And this has only happened in the last couple of days. So this is hot off the press.
There you go. Perfect.
hot off the press. And we're starting meetings on that in January. So, I mean, it's film, so God knows how long it's going to take. But, you know, I've sort of put myself in a position with the agreement that I'm sort of right in there. So I'll be whipping him along.
Oh, yeah. Keep them moving. We're done in no time.
I'll be like, did we sign that clause? Yeah, we did. Oh, God.
Yeah.
She's still here, I know.
Loud by Tana Douglas is available right now wherever you get your books, and you can get it in digital, paperback, or in audiobook formats. For more information, check out her website, tanadouglas.com.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Flash, we're coming home.
Nigel, is that you? Are you here, Nigel?